Let's go.
Let's
We've got
go.
lift off.
Yeah, how's it going?
Yeah, good. How are you?
All right, I've been better. You already know why. I'm not at 100% at the moment, and it's because of my haircut.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about that a little bit? Do we want to explore it? Because some people will be listening and not watching.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, just think like an extreme Peaky Blinders haircut that you didn't ask for, and that's what I was given yesterday at the hairdresser, who ordinarily is a great hairdresser, but I think was having an off day. So yeah, I mean, for anyone watching, I'm doing a little side to side. It's just like incredibly extreme. It's very, very short on the sides and back, which I'm not used to, and then really still quite long on the top. So it's not great. You know, whatever. People who have never seen me before, like you say, Jamie, they're not going to notice. They're going to think this is just my style, and I can live with that. But you know that feeling. Everyone I think has had a bad haircut at some point, and of course, being incredibly English, I'm just like, yeah, that's perfect, thank you. And you know, just sitting there in a chair, sort of watching it unfold and feeling powerless to the situation is.
Did you get all like? Because I've had that before. Did you get like a bit like hot and tingly and like a little bit? I have that. It's like, oh crap! Like something's happening that I don't have control of here.
A bit. The thing is that I have had that feeling before, and then the haircuts turned out all right. So I think part of me was holding on to the fact that okay, I've been here before, and actually it's been all right. He's the professional. He knows what he's doing. This will be fine in the end. I think I was trying to tell myself that. So I know that hot and tingly feeling, but I didn't necessarily have that. But then he got the mirror out and, you know, did the whole 360 thing. And yeah, I could see like the contours of my skull, which I've never seen before. So
you've had a non-consensual skin fade. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
There's got to be a support line for that somewhere.
Yeah. We meet on Thursdays.
Yeah. As my mentor or our mentor said yesterday, it makes you look hard. So
true.
Just embrace that.
True. Yeah. That's not necessarily the vibe I want to give off, but you know, the streets are only getting meaner, Jamie. So maybe it's not a bad thing. Anyway.
Maybe you need to go hang out on Prince of Wales Road here in Norwich.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like loiter about and just stare people down a little bit.
Do you want to know a good fact about Prince of Wales Road?
Go on then.
I don't know if this is still the case, but when I first moved to Norwich, Prince of Wales Road had the second highest crime rate of any street in the UK.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so I think there was a street in Peckham that had a higher crime rate, but Prince of Wales Road was second, which is crazy given that at the time that I moved to Norwich as a city had the lowest crime rate of any city in the UK as well. So those two facts combined, it's like all the crime in Norwich happened down Prince of Wales Road. Yeah,
and probably mostly on a Friday and Saturday night.
Yeah. We're not talking serious crimes here, you know, we're not talking murders. We're talking generally people just like pissing in public and getting into scraps and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think because I'm obviously, you know, I moved to Norwich like nearly 2 years ago. And my brother was upset that I was moving to Norwich. So he was trying to Google things that were bad about Norwich. And
that's quite sweet.
Yeah, one of the facts he came out with was like, "Did you know Norwich is the most crime-ridden city in Norfolk?" And I was like, "Hang on, isn't it the only city in Norfolk?" But I don't know if Kings Lynn counts. Does it? Is that a city?
No, I think it's a town.
So yeah.
But also, what your brother has done there is, I think, an example of what basically every B2B provider does, which is they manage to create some sort of we're the best at this, but actually logically they're the only one doing it.
Yeah,
it's like how we say we're the fastest growing newsletter agency in the UK. It turns out there aren't actually that many newsletter agencies in the UK. It's genius. It's the genius of marketing.
Yeah, if you're in a rate of one, you're always going to be the fastest.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Right. Let's stop chatting nonsense. So we wanted to do this episode. So we went to the MailChimp conference last week, which was called Forward something.
Yeah. Actually, it was FWD.
FWD.
Which is the trendy way of saying forward.
Yeah. I actually think that had unintended consequences. Whenever I had marketing communications from MailChimp about that, the subject lines always started FWD :
Yeah, it's
and then
smart.
it is smart, but also Gmail started like collapsing conversations and started doing weird things because it had
Oh,
forwarded,
really?
I think. But anyway,
It
like
thought that
they,
they were forwards.
yeah,
I
they
see.
always do a bit of wordplay on their conferences. Like last year, it was like from here to there.
Yes, it was.
Which
Yeah.
I went to. But yeah, so what James and I are going to quickly do in this episode is we're going to talk about two significant things that we took away from that event each. So 4 in total. We're going to discuss those a little bit. We're going to talk about why we might agree or disagree with that, or the merits of those arguments. And hopefully the benefit for you as the listener is that within about 15 minutes, you'll have taken away what some of the key things from the MailChimp conference without having actually gone. And all you would have missed is seeing Jamie Lang's face in real life and Fern Cotton, the free drinks, free coffee, free ice cream, the MailChimp floral statue of the actual monkey that had its backside bare.
It was the juiciest bum you've ever seen. I don't know who designed that and thought, let's just make the bum even juicier. But it was, you don't usually see the MailChimp's full body. So
no,
it was kind of weird to see that.
I think his name's Fred or Freddie. And Freddie's packing, let me tell you that much, in the backside area. So me and James obviously took some selfies with that backside.
Yeah.
So, that's probably worth the ticket price alone, but we're also going to give you some of the takeaways from some of the keynotes during that event. So let's start with the MailChimp keynote. I think that's a good place to start, right? Since it was a MailChimp conference.
Yeah, for sure. What did you take from that, Jamie?
So I think that there was an announcement. What they're aiming to do is build an Intuit platform or an Intuit dashboard where your Intuit apps can all talk to each other. So your QuickBooks and your MailChimp are talking to each other. And I think the reason they want to do that is they're making this big move towards data and making data available to arm people with the data that they need to be able to make good decisions for their business. And so their aim is to bring in integrations, to bring in this dashboard that links their apps together, but also bring in some AI as well, overlay it with that to help people make quick and impactful decisions for their business. That was the headline, right? And we aren't sponsored by MailChimp yet, unless they want to sponsor this this episode in hindsight. But that was the main takeaway. And I think that a couple of the other things there that they mentioned were the sheer level of investment that they're putting into the platform as well. There's these big figures being flown around in terms of millions or billions that they're putting back into the platform to reinvest, to improve it, to add all these extra features. And there's, I can't remember, it was like there was thousands of tweaks made to the platform in the past few months or something since the start of the year. So, all very exciting stuff that you expect to hear from someone who's running a conference and they're doing the opening keynote. It was a little bit kind of Steve Jobs or Microsoft or Bill Gates-esque, with the music and the exciting announcement and trying to get the crowd excited about these announcements when, I think the takeaway was the data.
Yeah, I'm actually disappointed at the lack of cringe at this conference. I was really hoping for more cringeworthy moments, and actually everyone conducted themselves really well and kind of got it. They were self-aware enough to kind of understand, for the most part, that, this is a conference. We're all here for professional reasons. Let's not get too carried away. But the word exciting was used on several occasions during this talk. I think, Jamie, MailChimp, like a lot of these big legacy softwares, has been guilty of sort of retrofitting features onto a platform that was never designed to support those features in the first place. You know, it has started to feel a little bit clunky in recent years because they will kind of just bolt things on, and you end up with this somewhat unintuitive platform that it makes it quite difficult to find particular things that you're looking for. So I think it's good that they are sort of not starting from scratch, but that it sounds like they're very much creating a separate platform to support this, rather than sort of trying to shoehorn it into the pre-existing MailChimp platform that we're used to. So that was a relief to hear. I think time will tell whether with these additional integrations, with this kind of union between the Intuit platforms, that it will provide marketers with the tools that they need to really elevate their email game. I would say the biggest criticism leveled at MailChimp is that they don't provide users with enough functionality to do what other rival platforms can do, particularly where commerce is concerned. So, you know, will this be the game changer they're hoping it will be? Is it going to persuade people to migrate from traditionally more sophisticated platforms to MailChimp? You know, I'm not necessarily convinced that it will, but it's cool that they are thinking from a more sophisticated perspective here and seem to be going after a slightly more sophisticated email sender than perhaps the MailChimp of, say, 2015, which was very much about, you know, getting those small businesses, those small business owners who weren't particularly au fait with the tech and were kind of happy with that fact.
Yeah, I think one thing that I want to make sure, or not make sure, who am I to say that I should be making sure, but one thing I would like to see doesn't get lost is if we have more data available to us, that users aren't then paralyzed with indecision with what to do, and that if we then layer in AI as well, that we aren't losing creativity and original thought either. And, you know, people who run businesses and people who run marketing departments should feel liberated by having the data that they have available and the AI tools that they have available. They shouldn't feel constricted or that they're producing lesser quality work because of those tools. So I would like to see, I'd like to see that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Do you want to take one next, or move on to the next takeaway?
Yeah, no, I had a nice segue actually, which is that speaking of AI, Tom Goodwin, the final speaker of the day, said something interesting, which is that AI has become a marketing term, right? Which is so true, isn't it? Like AI is kind of being slapped on everything. You know, features that existed way before ChatGPT are suddenly AI features. You know, a lot of the time, I think AI has sort of been bastardized as a term to basically mean anything that's automated or or that uses data to draw insights. That, by the technical definition, is not artificial intelligence. But that's not the main takeaway that I had from Tom's talk. But I wanted to mention that because I do feel like whenever you go to these conferences now, it's almost like MailChimp has an obligation to talk about how they're integrating AI into their platform. I'm not necessarily sure that they've done a great job of doing that so far. I would say that for every email service provider, by the way. I don't think anyone's really mastered it yet. But that pressure to include it in their platforms has led to these kind of slightly substandard integrations that nobody actually uses. The thing that I liked most about Tom's talk was his emphasis on marketing to normal people and remembering kind of how a normal human behaves in relation to brand messaging. And I love this, Jamie, because, you know, as with a lot of humans, I like the points that kind of reaffirm the beliefs that I already have going into something like this. And I felt there were a couple of moments across the day where I was like, this is what we've been saying. And one of them is this idea that, it's something that we're often having to tell our clients is that, you know, people aren't orientating their days or their weeks around the messaging that you have to give them. So, you know, there's often a hesitancy that brands have when it comes to sending too many emails, for example, or repeating the same message on LinkedIn and through a newsletter, as though there are hordes of people that are irritated or put out by the fact that they're getting the same messaging twice. Of course, the reality is you're probably only making one impression if you're lucky with your target audience. People need to stop believing that when someone goes to bed at night, that they're thinking as they drift off to sleep, like, oh, I wonder what, Lexus are going to email me with tomorrow, or I wonder what. I mean, he used the example of he's looking to buy a car, which is probably why Lexus popped into my head. And he had like 8 emails from this car vendor after submitting an inquiry within, I think it was like 6 or 7 days. And this like absolute sort of bombardment that he then had to deal with. And, it was all things like follow us on socials, leave us a review. It was all asking, like, give us something, do this thing for us, and kind of forgetting the point that like normal people who interact with brands and want to buy something probably aren't that interested in following you on socials. They're probably not that interested in spending their time leaving you a review, particularly when they haven't even bought something from you. So this constant demand that brands put on recipients to like give them stuff, to give them affirmation, to give them reviews, to follow them on socials, to reply, is all assuming that like we're the center of their universe. And I really like the way, I'm probably butchering the eloquence that Tom gave to this, but I really like this reminder, this almost like this humbling reminder that brands are not that important to the average person, that nobody's day has been ruined or made by your emails, and you should remember that when you're sending your email.
Yeah, I like that. And I think it's a little bit kind of like, not that he said this, but we need to get our own asses a little bit and just think about the role that we actually play in people's lives when we're sending marketing communications. And that plays a little bit into what we speak about so often, which is about providing value to people and to how do we make someone's day better, how can we keep the reader in mind when we write our emails. You spoke a little bit there about impressions, and that was something that an earlier speaker, Delaquist, was talking about in his talk, which was around, impressions in the inbox. And that was one thing that I took away, and I'm still kind of mulling over in my mind at the moment, and about the significance of people who receive an email but don't open it, the significance of that impression. And how we so often will chase impressions on social media, we chase impressions on adverts, TV, we're chasing impressions in every single marketing channel, but we never consider impressions in the inbox as a metric. And I thought that was really interesting. I think it's something that we have to be careful about, because we're almost saying then we can't just chase impressions of the inbox and not consider other metrics. Because what we don't want is an email list that's giving us a 10% open rate, and we're just saying, oh, well, that's fine. Think of all the impressions we're getting. We have to balance it. And, we always say here at the Inbox Club, we have to balance open rates with click rates, and that we should never take one metric in isolation, but we should take all of the metrics and think about the story that they're telling us. But I thought that was really interesting. I hadn't necessarily thought about impressions in the inbox.
I agree. And it's a lovely point for an email marketer, because it means that even if open rates are low, there's still an argument to be made that it's worthwhile sending emails, which is always helpful. It's always nice to have that in our artillery. I think for me it's this idea that, like, I think, Jamie, you and I are used to talking about email in the sense that an open is an impression and then a click is an interaction. And Delaquist, I suppose, is making the point that a send is an impression, and an open is an interaction, the first interaction, and then a click is another interaction after that. And yeah, he actually made the point that if you are emailing a segment that doesn't engage with your emails, i.e. doesn't open them, that actually there's an argument that you should still be emailing that demographic every single week, which definitely goes against the conventional wisdom of of email marketing, which in general says, okay, target that segment with some re-engagement stuff. But if they're still not engaging, unsubscribe them, leave them alone. Why are you paying to reach those people? Why are you potentially impacting your deliverability in order to reach those people? And Delaquist was saying, well, look, you're still being seen. The likelihood is you're still being seen by them. They're still having to register in their brains that you've sent them an email, and then they're choosing to ignore it, and that impression might still make an impact. It's quite a controversial one, Jamie, isn't it? Because we do tend to preach that generally if people are ignoring your emails or they're not opening them as far as the data is concerned, that those people are lost causes to some. You can try and win them back, but it's probably not going to happen. I'm not necessarily convinced by it personally, because I do think spam folders exist, promotions folders exist. There is a high chance that a lot of people not opening your emails are doing so because they are actually not seeing them, not that they are seeing them and then kind of making a conscious decision to not open. I'm not entirely convinced. It's not something that we're going to be rolling out to our clients anytime soon. Like, let's start emailing your unengaged segment every week. But I do think what it does drive home for me is that there is a value in sending emails, even if your open rate needs improving. And, I think a lot of people are dispirited by the fact that maybe they're only getting 15, 20% opens. That doesn't mean you're being seen by 15, 20% of your list. Yeah,
but it also doesn't mean you're being seen by 85 to 80% of
no.
the rest of them either.
No, indeed.
Because like you said, I think particularly for consumer-facing brands, and you're emailing end users who have promotion tabs or social tabs in Gmail, there are emails. I don't see every single email I get, so I'm not. There's not an impression that's being counted there, or So just like you said, so I think for me the takeaway and my advice, because I am in a position where I can offer email marketing advice, is that we won't necessarily change any of our practices because we now have been told about impressions or informed about impressions. But what we can do is we say, okay, well, look, we know what best practices and we will stick to those. But also we think about, okay, maybe for our clients, I would say benchmarking as an agency, we get anywhere between 50 and 60% open rates, right? When we report that in the future, we might say, okay, well, we have to also remember that the 40 to 50% that didn't open, there's still some value there.
Yeah.
There's still some value, there's still some impressions being made. But what it won't do is it won't wash away all of our best practices, and it won't change fundamentally what we do. It's maybe just how we think about the people that aren't opening, that's still valuable. I think we still need to have a very clear engagement and re-engagement and sunset parameters in place. And for me, that could be 90 day, it could be 120 day, it could be 150 day, whatever that is. It's different for different businesses and brands. And we should still stick to those parameters, but it can change our thinking about how our emails are perceived, even if they're not opened.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I like that. I think the final thing for me was there were, as Jamie alluded to earlier, quite a lot of celebrities speaking at this conference. Jamie Lang and Fern Cotton did like a kind of conversation on stage, and Joe Wicks, the body coach, as he's known to some, was part of a panel discussion in the morning, and I really liked what Joe brought to the stage, to be honest with you, because I felt he was a departure from the kind of the marketing brain. He came very humble and sort of, this is what I do because it just makes sense to me. And, I kind of liked his honesty when it came to like how he doesn't really use data to make his decisions, but prefers to nurture these long-term relationships with his followers. And that seems to be working for him, because at one point, Jamie, he kind of just casually dropped in the fact that he has 1 million subscribers on his newsletter. And I think, again, this totally reinforced what we've said in previous episodes. And I would urge you, if you haven't listened to, go back to our creator specials. We did a 3-part trilogy a couple of months ago. But in that, we talk about the value of creators owning their data. And Joe spoke really well about that and said, one frustration that he's had with Instagram, which is his primary platform at the moment, is that he can post a story and one day he'll get 300,000 impressions on that story. He'll post the next day and for no reason whatsoever, he's getting under 100,000, which obviously these are still eye-watering numbers for a lot of people. But, the fact that he will see, this huge decline in impressions for no apparent reason is really frustrating to him. He knows that if he sends a newsletter, he's going to get a 50% open rate, which, by the way, if you've got 1 million subscribers, is incredible. It's relatively low effort. He sends it once a week and he's reaching 500,000 people every time he does that. And he's not monetizing it, Jamie, which is remarkable. I guess indirectly it will be monetized because, we've just talked about the value of impressions and people might go and buy one of his books having read one of his newsletters, but he's not monetizing it in some of the ways that we discussed in our creator specials. But still, amazing that he made an effort to talk about how valuable he finds email marketing. And I think at the moment there aren't many creators talking about that. I think in a year or two, every creator is going to be talking about it.
Yeah, I agree. And Joe Wicks, if you're listening, because you probably are, if you want to monetize your newsletter and also stay true to who you are, the Inbox Club, we're your guys.
Yeah.
That's a crazy figure. There can't be many creators out there with a newsletter list with with 1 million subscribers. That's a crazy figure.
Yeah, I think it's a crazy figure, but also a testament to the fact that if you just put a little bit of effort into growing a list as a creator, you can reach stratospheric numbers. Not relatively easily. I'm not saying it's an easy job for him, but it's not like he's pushing his newsletter aggressively every time he posts some content. He's just built that up over the years. And remember, Joe Wick's been going for quite a long time. He was massive in COVID, but he was creating content on these platforms way before COVID. So he's been going for a while. But, he's just built that list up over the years. He said he sends like a super simple thing. He has like a workout on there. He'll link to a YouTube video or something like that, maybe a recipe. That's all it is. Nothing too crazy. Repurposing stuff that he's probably already posted elsewhere. And, he's reaching 500,000 people every time he does that, which is amazing. Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. I mean, we promised a 20-minute episode. We're at 27 minutes. So sorry, listeners, but it's testament to the MailChimp conference. It is a high-quality conference. I'm not being paid to say this. I will always go to it. I think because it's the talks are good. The speakers are high quality. You get to see some celebs, which is nice, but also they do a great job of looking after you throughout the day as well. And it's got a kind of premium feel around it, which is nice. So the food was really good.
Yeah, food was really good. Food was good, and you get to see Freddie the MailChimp's butt as well. So perfect. Check it out. It happens every year. So check it out for 26. But thanks for listening.
Cheers.